In Love with the God short series, The Book of 7 Reasons. Shemar reached for a box of protein bars when he heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me, can you help me with something real quick?" He turned around and saw a woman, maybe early to mid-30s, glowing skin, bright eyes, and vibrant red locks that framed her face like a halo. She pointed upward towards a jar of almond butter on the top shelf. "I've been standing here for 5 minutes trying to figure out how to climb up there without embarrassing myself," she added with a laugh. Shemar smiled and stepped closer. "No need for acrobats today," he said, easily grabbing the jar and handing it to her. "Here you go." "Thank you. I always forget stores aren't built for people under 5'5". Shemar chuckled. "That's why we tall folks have to stay useful." She tucked the jar into her basket and gave a nod of approval. "Appreciate it. I'm Jessica, by the way." "Shemar, nice to meet you." They fell into step, moving slowly through the aisles. He noticed how her smile lingered, easy and genuine. There was something earthy and elegant about her. She carried herself like a woman who knew who she was. No pretense. "You seem like you actually know your way around a grocery store," she said, eyeing the contents of his cart. "Trying to eat clean," Shemar replied. "I got tired of spending money on junk. Learned a long time ago that quality matters. Food, clothes, people." Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Preach. I'm the same way." "Exactly," he said. "Most people think budgeting means cutting corners, but really, it's just choosing wisely. Especially when you're feeding a family. It matters even more." Shemar nodded slowly. "So you've got kids?" Jessica smiled, a little cautiously. 7. Shemar blinked, caught off guard. 7? "Yeah," she said, her voice steady. "I know it sounds like a lot, but they're my everything. I had my first when I was young, and the rest came in a mix of blessings and chaos." He didn't speak right away. He studied her face, looking for hesitation or apology, but found none. She didn't flinch. She didn't shrink. She was standing there, whole, confident, and beautiful. Shemar finally exhaled and gave a short laugh. "Wow, that's real. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that." "I get that a lot," she said with a half smile. "I usually don't say anything right away, but I also don't hide it. My life is loud, but it's full." "Respect," he said after a beat. "Seriously, that's a lot of love to manage." Jessica relaxed a little. "It is, and work, and groceries," she added, holding up the almond butter. They both laughed. Shemar glanced at her basket again. "So, what do 7 kids eat in a week?" She rolled her eyes playfully. "Everything, and then snacks afterward." He smiled, genuinely intrigued. "You're amazing. I can barely meal prep for myself and still forget lunch most days." "I've got charts, lists, backups for my backups." Shemar was quiet again. This time, considering, he admired her more than he expected. The initial spark of attraction hadn't dimmed with the revelation of motherhood. If anything, it deepened. She was real, grounded, and rare. "I own a building," he said out of the blue. Jessica blinked. "Okay, that was a shift." He laughed. "Sorry, I was just thinking. I've done well for myself. Got my own place, rent out suites in the building, gym a few times a week. I've worked hard to make sure I could take care of myself. I guess I'm wondering if I'm built to handle someone who's already built something much bigger than me." Jessica tilted her head. "You don't have to handle it, you just have to respect it." Shemar nodded slowly. "I do." She looked at him with softened eyes. "Then maybe we can just see where this goes. No pressure, just 2 people who met over almond butter." He smiled. "I can work with that." They stood there, carts parked in the glow of grocery store lights, somewhere between two aisles and the possibility of something unexpected. As they neared the checkout line, Shemar glanced at Jessica again, his curiosity still tugging at him. "You got plans after this?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "There's a Starbucks just down the strip. Thought maybe we could sit and talk a little more." Jessica smiled softly but hesitated. "Honestly, I'd love to, but I've got to get home and cook. Feeding 7 mouths isn't a small task." Right, he said quickly, feeling a little silly for forgetting. "That's real." She leaned on her cart, studying him for a moment. "But I'm free tomorrow morning, after I drop the kids at school, around 9. Shemar perked up. "9 works. Same Starbucks?" "Yep. I go there sometimes to journal and breathe before the day's pickups." He smiled. "Cool. I'll be there." Jessica nodded, then looked at him with a bit of a mischief in her eyes. "You okay? You look like your brain locked up when I said 7 kids. Shemar chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Hey, you noticed that, huh?" "Oh, I always notice. You wouldn't be the first." He paused, trying to choose his words. "I guess I'm just wondering how someone like you, young, grounded, beautiful, ends up raising 7 kids. That's a big life." Jessica's smile didn't falter, but it did shift to something more measured. "It's big and beautiful and messy. I got pregnant at 14. The next few followed, some from love, some from learning. Same dad for the first 4. After that, life got complicated." "Different fathers then?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Yeah, and no drama. I keep the peace. It took years to learn boundaries and protect my kids from grown folks' nonsense." Shemar took that in. "That's a lot of growth." Jessica looked him in the eyes. "It is. I've lived more in short years than some folks do in 50. But I'm not bitter. My kids are my joy, and I've worked hard to raise them with love and structure." Shemar nodded slowly, impressed. "You're something else." Jessica laughed. "That's a good thing." "It's a great thing." She tilted her head. "Then I'll see you at 9? 9, he repeated, smiling as she pushed her cart towards the self-checkout. As she walked away, Shemar watched her, partly in admiration, partly in thought. The reality of her life was heavier than he expected, but so was her presence. It didn't feel like baggage, it felt like weight, earned, real and steady. And maybe, just maybe, he was ready to carry a little more than his own. Later that night, Jessica sat on the edge of her bed, the room dimly lit by the soft glow of a salt lamp. The kids were down, thank God, and the house was quiet for once. She reached for her journal, but instead of writing, she sat still, thinking about the man from the grocery store, Shemar. He had a warm, focused energy, the way he listened, how his eyes didn't wander when she spoke. It was rare and refreshing. He was fine, too. Broad shoulders, easy smile, that clean, intentional look like a man who had his life together. But what lingered in her mind most was the fact that he didn't mention any kids. No pictures on his phone, no stories about pickup or soccer games. That's usually the first thing a man with children bring up in casual conversations. She wasn't judging him. She just nodded. She had developed the habit of reading men carefully over the years. Experience taught her to look for the gaps in what they said and what they didn't say. She exhaled deeply and pulled her locks into a loose ponytail. "I'm not even looking for a relationship," she whispered to herself. And it was true. Men often didn't know what to do with a woman like her. 7 kids, that was usually enough to send them running for the hills. But Shemar didn't flinch, at least not outwardly. She could tell he was surprised, but he was still present, still curious, still intentional. She smiled softly, shaking her head. "That man has no idea what my life has really been like." She leaned back and stared at the ceiling. She was 14 when her world flipped upside down. Triplets, all at once. 7 hours of labor that changed everything. 1 minute she was a fast-talking teenager who loved to dance and watch cooking shows with her grandma. The next, she was holding 3 newborns and trying to learn how to mother while still figuring out who she was. What saved her was her village. Both parents and his stepped in, all hands on deck. It wasn't easy. Chaos lived in every corner of that house, but there was love, real love. They tag-teamed diapers, midnight bottles, nap schedules. She and their dad, Devon, tried to stay grounded, tried to make it work. Somehow, amidst their time at school and handling triplets, they had another baby when she was 16. She still finished school. Devon got into the longshoreman program, and they pushed forward, young and tired and determined. Jessica's eyes began to miss, but she blinked the tears away. Shemar wouldn't see that version of her. He didn't know the 14-year-old who lost herself and then slowly rebuilt. Now in her early 30s, her kids were older. The triplets were in high school. Her youngest was just hitting second grade. She had systems, routine, peace, and she wasn't about to invite chaos back into her life for just any man. Still, there was something about Shemar. He felt different. And for the first time in a long time, she was curious enough to see what different might feel like. The cafe smelled of cinnamon, roasted espresso, and freshly baked bread. The low hum of conversation and jazz playing overhead created a cozy, unhurried space. Jessica arrived first, dressed in a soft denim jacket over a sage green top. Her locks were pinned up in a loose bun, gold hoops catching the light. She sat by the window sipping her chai latte when Shemar walked in. He spotted her immediately and smiled. "Hey, good morning," he said, walking over. "Good morning, Shemar," she replied warmly, standing to hug him. He looked sharp but relaxed in a tan hoodie and jeans. He had that scent that first caught her off guard. Clean, woodsy, grounded. They settled in with their drinks, small talk dissolving quickly into something more honest. "You ever feel like people see your life and think they already know you?" Jessica asked, stirring her tea. "All the time," Shemar said, "especially when they find out I own a building. Suddenly I'm the rich guy who should be funding their dreams." Jessica laughed. "Are you the rich guy?" Shemar smirked. "Not even close. I just make good decisions after a few bad ones." Her smile faded a little as her curiosity deepened. "What happened?" "I was engaged once. Thought I had it all figured out, but she wasn't really into me. She just wanted what I could offer. She didn't want to build something together. She wanted to be taken care of while breaking me down." Jessica frowned. "That's heavy." "Yeah," he nodded. "It took me a while to see it. I stayed too long trying to prove I was enough, but the truth is, she never planned to meet me halfway." There was a moment of quiet, mutual understanding between them. Jessica reached for her cup. "Sounds like you've been through some real stuff." Shemar gave a small nod. "I was raised by my dad, never met my biological mom, disappeared with some guy, and my dad just kept going, stepped up. Then when I was 10, he met a woman at church. They got married a year later. She couldn't have kids of her own, but she poured so much love into me." He looked out the window for a moment. "She's my mom, blood or not." Jessica placed her hand over her heart. "That's beautiful, really." Shemar smiled at her, genuinely touched. "You make it easy to talk. Your voice is calming," she admitted, "like NPR mixed with a bedtime story." He smiled. "That might be the best compliment I've gotten all year." They laughed, sipped, and dove into stories about childhood, discipline, dreams, and disappointment. 3 hours felt like 20 minutes. As they walked out into the sunlit morning, Shemar turned to her. "I like this," he said. "Me too." He paused. "So, I've been thinking about moving. Been in this loft downtown for years. but I want something with a yard, maybe a garden, quiet, real space. Thinking of buying? Jessica tilted her head. Yeah, I've been looking. I was going to hit a couple of houses this week, and I was wondering if you want to come. She smiled, surprised by intrigue. You want me to come house hunting with you? He nodded. You have good energy. I trust your eye. No pressure, just company. Jessica bit her bottom lip, then grinned. All right, I'm down. Text me the details. 3 days later, Jessica pulled up to the first listing in a navy blue SUV. Shemar was already there, leaning against his car, wearing a black sweater and slacks, holding 2 iced coffees. You really bought coffee? She teased, stepping out. Had to, he said. Didn't want our streak of deep conversations to end just because we're near a for sale sign. She took her drink. Fair enough. Together they walked towards a house, a small, charming place with big windows and a wraparound porch. Could you see yourself here? Shemar looked at her, not the house. Maybe, he said quietly. Depends on what the next chapter looks like. Jessica looked away, blushing slightly, but she didn't miss the warmth in his words. Shemar's voice came through Jessica's earbuds, warm and familiar as she stirred a pot of soup for her oldest son. I meant what I said, Jess. I don't want to just talk to you. I want to date you. Like, for real. Jessica paused, her hand stealing over the spoon. She smiled, gently, quietly. One of those smiles that formed deep in the chest and made its way up to the lips slowly. I know you do, she said softly. And we've been dating. No, he said more firmly now. We've been talking, seeing each other in between your life. I don't mind. I'm not complaining. I know what you've got going on, but I want more. Her heart thudded with the strained mixture of hope and hesitation. You sure? She asked, barely above a whisper. Jessica, if you're on the calendar, I'm clearing mine. You already know that. She laughed a little, covering the tension in her chest. That sounds sweet now, but we both know there's a lot attached to me. Yeah, he replied. I know about the kids. I know about the schedules. And I know I haven't met them yet, which I respect. Jessica bit her lip. It had been intentional. The triplets were seniors, each one with their own storm of emotions and emerging independence. Her 16-year-old son had just started driving. The twins were hormonal and hilarious, and her youngest, bright-eyed and always asking questions, still needed tucking in. Each one had a unique rhythm, and she wasn't about to disrupt it with a relationship unless she knew it had roots. And Shemar, he had been patient, present, constant, but he wasn't naive. There's something else I should probably explain, she said, her tone shifting. Shemar waiting. I don't live with them, she said. I mean, I'm here every day. I cook, I shop, I show up. But I go back to my apartment at nights. Some nights when their dads are in. Devon, he travels. Sometimes I have to stay with the kids. And I just wanted you to know that. You've said that before, Shemar replied. I didn't press. I figured there was a reason. There is. Jessica stepped away from the stove and sat down at the table, gripping the phone a little tighter. Their fathers, they don't want their kids raised by any other man. That's been clear since day one. And even though they're not with me, they've always found a way to keep control. Shemar didn't speak right away. He knew when to give her space to finish. I'm paid to take care of them. That's the agreement. It started out helpful, but it became a leash. There was silence on the other end of the line. Not judgment, just processing. I've spent most of my life under the decisions of 2 men who don't want me, but didn't want to let me go either, she continued. I'm 32. I've raised these kids, and I'm still not free. Shemar let out a long breath. You ever think about walking away from that setup? All the time, she said, tears pressing behind her eyes. And I've been working on it. I've been writing again. I'm taking classes to become a certified life coach. That's fire, he said quietly. I want to help women like me, women who get caught early, who were taught to survive but never taught to choose themselves. I want to teach them how to set boundaries, how to reclaim their choices. But I gotta do it for myself first. I support that. All of it, Shemar said. But Jess, let me ask you something real. Okay. Okay? When you're done cooking, parenting, breaking old patterns, healing wounds that weren't even yours to carry, who takes care of you? Jessica's throat tightened. I'm trying to learn how to do that, she whispered. Well, Shemar said, voice low and full of sincerity, maybe let me help you while you learn. The city lights flickered outside Shemar's window, casting long golden shadows across his living room. He sat on the couch, one leg stretched out, the other bent, his phone resting on the coffee table next to an empty wine glass and a half-eaten plate of pasta Jessica had made the night before. Shemar leaned back and his eyes closed, hands behind his head. He was in love. Not the kind of love that hits fast and fades even faster. This was slow, certain, and wrapped in quiet moments. A woman reaching for almond butter in aisle 6, who somehow became the stillness and spark he didn't know he needed. He thought about the first night she stayed over. They hadn't even planned it. They were up talking about life, about childhood, about fear and future. And when the sky started to brighten, her eyelids got heavy. She curled up on his couch like it was already hers. The next morning, she made him breakfast. She even wiped down the counters and organized his tea drawer without saying a word. You really don't need to do all that, he said. I know, she smiled, but I like loving people in practical ways. That stayed with him. So did her insight. She didn't just affirm him, she saw him. You're not paying rent, she had said one night while running her fingers along the edges of his kitchen counters. Your tenants pay it. That's your leverage. Stop moving like you owe the world permission. He had listened, held on to those words, because they weren't just good advice. They were a push from someone who wanted him to win. He purchased another unit, clean, modern, already producing. Jessica had helped him review the contract, looked at the numbers, and talked through the options like a real partner. She wasn't just smart, she was strategic. And now, 5 months after almond butter and conversation, Shemar couldn't imagine moving forward without her. He didn't just want Jessica in his life. He needed her. Her presence had softened his walls. Her wisdom had sharpened his path. And her love, gentle, layered, consistent, had cracked something open in him. He looked towards the kitchen where she had left a sticky note that read, "Remember, closed mouths don't get fed, closed hearts don't get love. JL." He smiled. Moments later, Shemar found himself standing at Jessica's door, his pulse steady but alert. He hadn't planned to come over, it just felt right, necessary even. He had typed the text and hit send without overthinking. I need to see you. Now he was here. The door creaked open, and there she was, Jessica, wrapped in a soft plum robe, still damp from the shower. Her locks hung low, drops of water clinging to the tips. The glow of her skin under the hallway light made Shemar forget whatever speech he thought he'd prepare. I just stepped out the shower, she said with a quiet smile. I looked, and as soon as I saw your text, I looked up and you were already walking up to the door. He grinned. I couldn't wait. Jessica stepped aside. Come in. Shemar entered, closing the door behind him with a soft click. The air smelled of shea butter, fresh linen, eucalyptus, and warm, familiar wildflowers, like her. She motioned towards the couch, tugging her robe close a bit. I was just about to make some tea. He watched her as she moved through the space, calm, barefoot, assured in a way only Jessica can be. You really just got out of the shower? He asked, half laughing. Jessica tossed a look over her shoulder. You think I walk around glowing like this on purpose? Shemar laughed and dropped onto the couch. Actually, yes. From the couch, Shemar could see the soft curve of her silhouette, the grace of her hands as she moved, and the quiet strength in her presence. He couldn't believe how much this woman had come to mean to him in just 5 months. Jessica returned with 2 mugs. She handed him one and sat beside him, tucking one leg under her. You okay? She asked. Shemar nodded, then looked at her. Really looked. No, he said gently. I'm not okay. I'm not okay without you. I'm not okay with not telling you how I feel. Jessica's face softened, lips parting just slightly. Shemar set the mug down. I love you, Jessica Landry. She blinked once, then again. I love how you move. I love how you speak life into everything you touch. I love how you make me feel like I'm not carrying everything alone. Jessica stared at him, heart thudding in her chest. For a moment, all she could do was take in the sound of her name on his tongue, his truth, his timing. Say it again, she whispered. He leaned closer. I love you. She took a breath, then placed her hands on his chest. Then stay a little longer tonight. And he did. Not because he wanted her body, but because his heart had already moved in. Shemar moved Jessica to straddle his lap as he sat thirsty for whatever she was wanting to give. Jessica hadn't been intimate with someone in a long time, and this would be a welcoming event to her starving female needs. Shemar initiated and kissed her deeply. Jessica received it all and allowed Shemar to untie her robe. Jessica thought back to encounters with her children's father. They were quick and fast because they were sneaking around. Much of the arousal was the adrenaline surge that they tried to hide by not getting caught. She had no business going into the dark room at the community center with Devin. He had been asking her to touch him and kiss for a long time, and she finally gave in. He was cute and cunning and had watched way too many adult tapes. As soon as she hit the room with him, he went to work on her, making her feel comfortable and then getting down to business with her. It wasn't bad, but they had no protection. Because they had gotten away with it once, he knew how to make her body ready for him. They went back to that room more than they should have. In a few months, she found out she was pregnant. Shemar was shirtless and intentional with his hands on her hips. Jessica was enjoying every stroke, caress, and kiss. She was now laying on her back. Her affair with her second baby father was a bit more romantic. He was a little older and smoother. Once Devon had gone off to school and their 4th child was born, Jessica felt a little lonely. Devon did too, and he had a few chicks calling his phones. After a few months of not vibing, Devon and his family decided that the children should stay with them full time. Jessica went to school, and that's where she met Alex. He was so handsome and flirtatious, and because Jessica had been sexually active with Devon, she didn't even hesitate to indulge Alex after knowing him a month. Alex let her experiment on him, and he enjoyed all of her time. He taught her some things she will never forget, and they barely thought about the consequences of him bending her over his hood. Jessica hadn't even told him that she had 4 children. When she got pregnant again, Devon's family was furious, and they filed for full custody of the kids along with her parents, just for her protection so that she could still have access to the kids. Devon agreed, and so did she. Alex wasn't happy either, but that didn't stop him from enjoying her body more. He bought them a house and told her that she didn't have to work as long as she took care of the twins and had her body ready for him when he wanted. Jessica agreed because she liked being with Alex. He was good at lovemaking. Life was good at home until the 3rd baby. Alex sought another tender young thing even though Jessica was only 20. Stay with him, and he could go out and sleep with who he wanted. Jessica agreed. Where else could she go? She still had access to her 4 children because Devon's parents saw her in a stable environment, and her parents also trusted her. The kids would meet up at the park and all was well. Jessica didn't mind that Alex was with different women. He tried to sleep with her, and so did Devon, but she said no. She was busy healing, building her life, and they could deal with their mess. About 5 years ago, they all decided that Jessica should have her own place and to just make sure the children are good. They both paid her rent, and she bought groceries with the budgets they gave her, $1,200 a month for her needs and utilities because she was taking care of the children. Jessica enjoyed what Shemar was doing to her in the present. It had been a long time for a guy to love her tenderly like this. She don't think she ever had this feeling or this attention. She wanted a normal life with Shemar, and she finally had done the internal work to receive all that he was offering. She was alone for 10 years. No one, just working on herself, finding out who she was, getting out of the stigma of baby mama and multiple sex partners. She had done the work on herself to love herself, no matter what, and be the woman that her children needed, the mother that was there for them, and to be a drama-free partner to the other guys, even though they wanted to control her. She found her freedom. She found her freedom in her work. She had went to school for something she no longer needed, but now she had found her purpose in being a life coach to women so that she could teach them to not make the mistakes that she once made. 4 years later, Shemar and Jessica were married for 3 years and owned a couple of buildings. They decided that they didn't want children together because Jessica had 7 reasons for him to be the stepdad that he needed to be to all of them. She had a budding practice, owned one of the offices in the building that they rented, and women's lives were changed by her mistakes. Thank you for listening to In Love with the God, the short series. Stay tuned for more. And let me know if you like this format better than the longer series. Please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next story.